التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم واجعلنا مما يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك يا مقلب القلوب، ثبت قلوبنا على دينك آمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. How's everyone? الحمد لله رب العالمين. طيب. طيب. So the homework was page 24 and 25, right? Okay, let us mark. Because we want to get into مفعول مطلق today as well, inshallah. So that's why, is everybody understanding the مفعول لأجله? مفعول لأجله, right? To a certain extent. I also only understand it to a certain extent. In the same page, right? So what would be important whilst you're going through this is that when you're reading through the Quran and you see nasb, then as you go along, you should these lessons regarding nasb should offer you more ways to understand the Quran. Should offer you more ways to understand the Quran, right? So when you're reading through the Quran, كَالَّذِي يُنْفِقُ مَالَهُ رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ. So the moment you see that رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ, you're like, oh, that nasb seems a bit out of place there. I wonder if it could be مفعول لأجله. Let's see. How do I normally translate that? Because of, due to, out of, showing off. Okay, that makes sense, right? So when you're reading the Quran and you come across a nasb, then knowing something like maf'ul li-ajlihi should give you more things to think about and thus offer you more meaning in terms of your reading of the Quran beyond halatun nasb just being maf'ulun bihi, right? Or halatun nasb just being the khabar of kana. طيب. So I think we marked the first one, isn't it so? And the second one? Okay, let's start from the beginning. كالذي ينفق ماله رئاء الناس. From the males. Yes, like the one who spends his wealth to be seen by the people. How did anyone translate it differently? Showing off to people. So you could use once you have decided that the word is in halatun nasb and the reason is that it is maf'ul li-ajlihi, you have the liberty thereafter to translate it in which way you feel indicates that ri'a is the reason. You understand? So whether you say كَالَّذِي يُنْفِقُ مَالَهُ رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ, like the one who spends his wealth, what did you say? To be seen by people. Or you say because of showing off. No, on account of wanting to be seen. So all of those type of translations give the understanding that ri'a here is maf'ul li ajli. So you can from now on, this nasb and other nasb, right? will give rise to different types of translation that stem from the same rule. You understand? And this is why sometimes when you read translations, then translations for the self same rule will differ. Why? Because in the English language, you are going to have multiple ways of expressing reason. And any one of those ways will be a valid way to translate the verse, so long as you can go back to that translation and say, I translated it like this because it's li-ajlihi. And this type of wording in English indicates reason. Make sense? طيب. ولا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق. One of the ladies. Again. 4. Did you say 4? Ah. And do not kill your children. ولا تقتلوا. Do not kill أولادكم, your children. خشية إملاق, for fear of poverty. Right? Anyone translated it differently? Out of fear. Right? I thought that it would be out of fear. What else? You could have said on account of. You could say due to. You could say owing to. Right? Um, you could say because of. Right? All of that. ومن الناس من يشري نفسه ابتغاء مرضات الله. Someone from the online, do you want to participate today? Anyone?
And of mankind sells his own self for seeking the pleasure of Allah.
For seeking the pleasure of Allah, right? So she used the word there, for, right? And of mankind, or and of people, man is the one who yashri nafsahu, sells himself for seeking the pleasure of Allah, or you could have just said seeking the pleasure of Allah, or what else do you have? Desiring the pleasure of Allah, right? The sentence sometimes in and of itself gives the understanding of li-ajlihi, right? Of reason. ألم تر إلى الذين بدلوا نعمة الله كفرا. The males. For disbelief, right? And for them means what? Is it in place of? Out of. Out of disbelief. No, it is not that. Let us say this is the favor of Allah, and no, this is. Let us say this is the favor of Allah and this is disbelief, right? So are we saying that they said, you know what? Here's the favor of Allah, give us disbelief. Is that what they're saying? No. So when you say for disbelief, that's the meaning that you alluded. But that's not the meaning over here. This is the meaning of why do they do it? Answer the question why. So it says, did you not see those who what did they do? They turned over the favor of Allah. They exchanged the favor of Allah. They cast the favor of Allah. Why? Because disbelief was forcing them to do that. You see the difference? No. For disbelief, يعني on account of disbelief, due to disbelief, owing to disbelief, right? Because you could easily understand that as the second maf'ul, isn't it so? Baddala yubaddilu means to exchange. It's saying they exchanged the favor of Allah for disbelief. You could understand it like that. But the verse is not going like that. The verse is going that kufran here is maf'ul li ajlihi, not maf'ul thani. You see that? فأتبعهم فرعون جنوده فرعون وجنوده بغيا وعدوى. Of the ladies. Number 5. Out of what did you translate Baghian as? rebellion. What else do you have? Rebellion. Everyone has that. And adwan, enmity or hatred. So that would be correct. So Fir'aun and his army pursued them out of rebellion and hatred or enmity. Out of, or because of, or due to, or owing to, or on account of. يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت. حذر الموت. Anyone online?
They put their fingers in their ears from the thunderclaps in fear of death.
Yes. They put their fingers in their ears of the thunderclaps in fear of death, he says. Right? Or out of fear of death. Or on account of fear of death. Or owing to fear of death. Or with the reason of fearing death. All of that was, right? فأما الذين في قلوبهم زيغ فيتبعون ما تشابه منه ابتغاء الفتنة وابتغاء تأويله. Of the males? Yes. And as for those whom in their hearts is, what did you say? Perversity. What other word do you have there? Deviation, all the same thing. Perversity, deviation, right? So they follow that which is allegorical. What else did you have there? Ambiguous, right? That which is ambiguous, obscure of it. Ibtira'a al-fitna, seeking discord and seeking interpretation of it, right? Now, so your maf'ul li-ajlihi once again will be ibtira'a, and the second one ibtira'a. نعم. The next one, ولا تمسكوهن ضرارا لتعتدوا. Ladies. Anyone? And do not hold them back to harm. لتعتدوا. You just have to read what you wrote. In order to assault him. What else you have? So that you transgress. Anyone else? To transgress, right? So that's what it would be. وَلَا تُمْسِكُوهُنَّ. And do not keep them back. Or do not keep them. This is now referring to what? To forcing a woman to stay in a marriage with you, whilst you don't want to be in a marriage with her, but you keep her in the marriage. Why? ضِرَارًا. To harm her. Out of harm. To cause harm. لِتَعْتَدُوا. That you may transgress. Right? That you may oppress her. That you may, right? وَلَا تُمْسِكُوهُنَّ ضِرَارًا لِتَعْتَدُوا. So sometimes do any of you go back to the mushaf to check the whole verse? Any of you do that? No? And sometimes you need to do that because you need context to inform your decision. Now, obviously your decision is informed by the fact that we have put these verses under a title that is called maf'ul li-ajlihi. So you know that you just have to translate everything like that, right? However, when you read the Quran, things are not going to be boxed and contextualized for you, right? You have to read the verse, and within the context, you have to make a grammatical decision, right? So every now and again, when you do get confused, some of them may be like evidently clear through the snippets, but every now and again, you may come across a verse where, like, you know it must be maf'ul li ajlihi, but you don't quite understand why. Then it will help you to revisit the verse in its entirety. Like, oh, okay, verse number 231. This is what? Surah Baqarah. Allah is speaking about at-talaqu marratan fa imsakum bima'rufin aw tasrihim bi ihsan. Now, so Allah is speaking about divorces twice, so you keep them in goodness or you let them go in goodness. And then eventually Allah will say, وَلَا تُمْسِكُوهُنَّ ضِرَارًا لِتَعْتَدُوا. Now, don't keep them out of harm. And right? So if you revisit that section in the Quran, you will quickly understand the meaning of the verse, as opposed to solely relying on the Hans Weyer and a few translations. You're like, okay, what does it mean? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. Right? Hunna is woman after all. Who would be keeping woman? Where they're keeping it? Is Allah speaking about human trafficking? What's happening? Right? You don't know. So that is why sometimes you have a directory there of the verse that you may go back to it if you need to. The exercise doesn't ask that of you, but sometimes it's good to do that, right? والذين ينفقون أموالهم رئاء الناس. Didn't we did that one first, eh? Okay, so we'll skip over that one. يخرجون الرسول وإياكم أن تؤمنوا بالله. How how do you translate this? Else? Because you believe in Allah. Right? So here you can see the verb is nasb. You can see the verb is nasb, isn't it so? Because that is an-masdariya, and an-masdariya causes nasb. That's why it should have been an-tu'minuna, but the noon is dropped because the verb is nasb. Right? And why is the verb nasb? Because it's maf'ul li ajlihi. Right? One of the other ways to understand it is to make a taqdeer. A'mana yu'minu. This is يخرجون الرسول وإياكم إيمانكم بالله. إيمانكم بالله. That's also one of the ways to understand it. So the an-masdariya is there to turn the verb into the masdar. So what's the masdar of أَأْمَنَ يُؤْمِنُ? تُؤْمِنُ إيمان. أَأْمَنَ يُؤْمِنُ إيمانا. آمَنَ يُؤْمِنُ إيمانا. So you change the word تُؤْمِنُ to iman, but then because of the ta'di, you say imanakum, your iman billah. So it says, يخرجون الرسول وإياكم إيمانكم بالله, because of your belief in Allah. You see that? And this gave me understanding of a verse that I was reading the other day, and I thought, I understand it to be أن هداكم للإيمان. أن هداكم للإيمان. Because he guided you to faith. And I thought, why is this because? And you see here, this an comes to make the verb nas. And it gives the meaning of maf'ul li ajlihi. You see that? Like, if the sentence is nas, because remember, you're looking for the hal of nas, and you're looking to interpret nas in the meaning of li ajlihi. That can come in the form of a noun on its own, but you may also have a particle like the an-masdariya that causes a verb to be nasb, which allows you to interpret that nasb as fully ajli. Make sense? An tu'minu. No. Yes. Some scholars will go that way, that instead of saying that jumla fi'liya is nasb, and we interpret it like that, they'll say no. This an-masdariya must be understood in its taqdiri meaning. What's its taqdiri meaning? Meaning what? That one of the effects of the an-masdariya is that it puts the word in the meaning of the masdar. And the meaning of the masdariya is iman. So why did you do it? Why did they do it? Because of your iman. Right? Not because you believe, but because of iman. You understand it? You understand the difference between it? The difference is that if we say because you believe, then it's like if somebody else believed, it would have been fine. We wouldn't have cast him out. But if you believe, that's why we did it. It's not that. So the emphasis is not on the fact that you believe. The emphasis is on the fact that you have belief. Therefore, we can understand it as imanakum. So we bring out the word iman because the core meaning that maf'ul li-ajlihi is connected to is not tu'minu, that you believe. No, it's iman. It's the fact that within you there's a quality of iman. And that's the actual reason. So when we understand an tu'minu, we take it to the masdar because the masdar gives us the base meaning, and we can say, oh, this masdar iman is the reason. Make sense? It will come to light to you if you come across it in other verses. But like I said, that's one way that scholars will interpret the an-masdariya. Another way is to just say it's that sentence, and that's also fine. That's also fine. Okay. Let's go to maf'ul mutlaq.